The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Please, Odor. The Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels, is now in possession. Grudge, Dylan J. Schlender presiding. Will you all please dies for the horrible Grudge Schlender?
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels. First, we would like to welcome friend of the court, D-Rok Schlender, for joining us as a guest juror today. Thank you, sir.
Hey, I love that guy.
Boo.
All I did was answer a summons.
Today, we are hearing the case of The People versus Tales from the Darkside, the movie, a 1990 anthology horror movie that features three spooky tales as told by a captured paperboy trying to stall a witch from eating him. For those of you unfamiliar with our spooky court proceedings, we are here to determine which story in the anthology is superior. This decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on until the end of time, ad infinitum. Mr. Jack Bennett, you are representing the story Lot 249. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Jack Bennett. And as stated, I am representing Lot 249. And I have to say, before we start, I really, really like Tales from the Darkside, the movie. It is one of my favorite anthology movies. I hold it up with the biggest and the best and the most famous. I really think that it's a wonderful overall spooky time watch. It's fun. And it's sort of sitting right there in the middle of the classic sort of 80s practical effects driven horror movies that I grew up with. And then the sort of new wave that was going to come from the 90s that had sort of more expansive casts and focused on actors and characters and things like that, that for better or for worse dominated for the next decade. So in no way am I denigrating Tales from the Darkside overall by saying that my favorite and the best segment in Tales from the Darkside, the movie, is the first one, Lot 249. Because, and it's this principle that I'm going to guide my entire argument, do you have any idea how hard it is to make a mummy scary? Just ask Universal how hard it is to make a mummy scary, or to make a mummy relevant, or make a mummy interesting, or to modernize a mummy and keep the classic mummy aspects of it alive. I truly believe that Tales from the Darkside, the movie, pulls the amazing magic trick of being the best horror mummy on screen. It's the best horror mummy story. It's the best horror mummy character. It somehow improves upon Boris Karloff. And that, to me, more than anything, pushes this segment into it stands outside the movie and is a classic on its own right. It finds a new way to make a classic mummy into a modern monster. And there you go. That's my opening statement.
I like it. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Appearing on behalf of the Cat from Hell is Mr. Big Ben Haslar. Please present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. When I heard we were doing another anthology horror film in the works after last year's smash hit success trial, Trick or Treat, I found myself less than helpful, having not seen all that many of them. And I thought, and this is true, that there was one that played on Halloween nights as a kid where a cat crawls into a guy, and I think there was a mummy story in there too, but I didn't know the name of it, and I was too lazy to look it up based on that vague clue. So imagine my surprise when it turned out that this was the one. Bam, a mummy. So I didn't have to dig up this piece of my childhood. Here it was literally being hurled at me. And the strongest point I would like to extend in the defense of my client, the Cat from Hell, is that it was 100% the story that stuck with me the most out of the three, throughout the 30 or however many years it's been since I last saw it. On a cold night when my cat might snuggle up right next to my face, I'd think, hope they aren't trying to murder me by suffocation, just like that anthology film I once saw as a kid. If I ever found myself shuffling around in the dark to the bathroom or to get a glass of water and I'd feel a cat rub up against my legs, again, my mind would go right to the cat from hell. Upon hearing that banger of a children's song, The Cat Came Back, which has nothing to do with the story, I'd still think, evil cat. That reminds me of that one movie I once saw on Halloween nights. It had staying power for me. The others, well, I definitely remember the Mummy one, but not nearly as often. It might cross my mind when someone explicitly mentions the poker Egyptians would use to rip brains out, because that was a big plot point in that story. But other than that, whenever mummies come up, my mind more quickly jumps to the Karloff Fraser or, regrettably, Tom Cruise features before it goes to Lot 49. And as for the last story, I didn't remember it at all. At all. I don't know if it's because it was too boring for me as a kid and we switched it off, or it just simply didn't present anything that resonated with me. But in either case, it certainly doesn't make for a winning argument. But what's worse about that one is it is a direct ripoff of the Japanese ghost story Yuka Onna, which when I was watching this case, like for the second time, this monster instructs the dude not to say anything, and then he meets a hot girl afterward. I thought, oh, hey, that's exactly like that Japanese ghost story. And then like clockwork, every plot beat unfolded in the exact same way. And the film does not credit the original Japanese authors, and thus it should be considered plagiarism and ejected from the trial, Your Honor. Get Maynard out of here and let Jack and I dude it over the Mummy.
Oh, well, I'm not going to do that, but thank you all the same, Mr. Haslar. And Mr. Maynard Bangs, you are representing the final story tonight, Lover's Vow. Please present your opening statement.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the jury, and Mr. D-Rok Scumbucket himself, who I assume is here to attend an unrelated criminal proceeding.
Yes. Yes, make this quick. I have court in a minute.
My goodness, you really did keep the best one for last, didn't you? You're right, Blondie, we did. Lover's Vow is the best segment in this anthology. It's a smart, thematically loyal adaptation of a great folktale. It has love, sex, and decapitation, the three tentpoles of any successful marriage. Plus, it's the only segment here with a really gnarly twist ending, the key to a truly impactful anthology horror story. Plus, I have it on very good authority that we could see our very own twist ending right here today. One that nobody sees coming, not even Ben. But why take my word for it? Ask the unbiased paid spokesperson who really knows something about scary stories. That's right! Take it from me, an unbiased paid spokesperson. You can keep your crummy old mummy. And yuck, who wants a pussy so bad it eats you out? No. You have to go with the classic boy meets gargoyle story. Think about it, won't you?
Well, I gotta say, the Scaretaker did win me over, and the fact that he's that he's a paid and unbiased spokesperson, I think we can dismiss the case right now. Totally unbiased. All right, thank you, Mr. Jack Bennett. You may proceed with your opening, with your case.
I'm overwhelmed already. All right, well,
we all are. It's a lot to take in.
I'm just gonna suggest, in reference to the memory of the movie that you saw when you were a kid, memorable does not necessarily mean good. Because I also remember The Cat from Hell when I was a kid. And, I like it. I especially like it because it's sort of a two-hander between Bill Hickey and David Johansen, two of the great voices. I really like the casting of David Johansen. I was thinking about when I rewatched it just the other day, about how the guys that you could cast in that part, like anybody from that era who were playing the sort of hitman type parts, 1990, let's say, John C. McGinley or Anthony LaPaglia or people like that, if you would cast them, that they would lose this sort of combination of suave and apoplectic that David Johansen, first, he naturally has, as like he's the New York Doll, and he comes in and he's got this cool kind of almost dancer's grace to him, and Bill Hickey, who's a guy like Wilford Brimley, who, even though he was younger than he looked, he appeared to be 100 years old his entire career. Mm-hmm. It's it should be really good, except for it's just so ridiculous. Because first off, you have these fake stuffed cats moving in and out of these bodies. You have a car accident that's clearly a camera just spinning around, and you can tell that because of the way the fog spins with the image as the car is supposed to be apparently having a car accident. And the tone of it is, anyway, that's the one that is the silliest. Sure, it might be memorable, but it is silly. And one of the reasons why it's so silly is they have to work their asses off to have this cat be scary. You see David Johansen going, ah, wah, ah, and waving his arms, and then you cut to a cat looking up
Thank
at
you.
him.
I rest my case.
There you go. Yeah, no, they have to work their asses off to make the cat scary, and they still fall short. Now, obviously, I love cats. I'm looking at two of them right now. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a cat person because my best friend is a dog. But watching that movie and realizing that the filmmaking was falling short of actually making it a scary story, that's the reason why I can't hang with The Cat from Hell. And the reason I can't hang with The Lover's Vow is ultimately, even if you don't know the Yuki Onna folk tale, or if you know the Stories and Studies of Strange Things book, there's only one way that story can go. It's kind of predictable. It's one of those things where as soon as it begins and as soon as the woman shows up, you're like, okay, so he's going to tell her and something's going to happen. The twist is, and you know,
Wait, you're saying if you're unfamiliar with the folktale, your first instinct when he meets the beautiful woman is, oh, that's the gargoyle?
No,
that he's going to tell her and die.
The first is he's going to tell her and die. And of course, the twist is that, no, she's the gargoyle. But even that does not make up for the fact that, and I really like that segment because I really like Rae Dawn Chong, and I love her and James Remar together, like them as a couple. We rewatched this the other day. Lisa Lance and I rewatched this the other day, and her read of "You promised you wouldn't tell" is a great uncommon line reading. But you watch that whole thing and you're just like, okay, when's the horror coming in? When's the horror coming back? When's he gonna tell her? When? It doesn't build suspense so much it builds the frustration of there's only one direction the story can go, and I'm just waiting for it to go in that direction. The reason I love Lot 249 using those same principles is, even though there's the predictability of the mummy coming back, what's the mummy going to do when he comes back? If we apply every other mummy movie we've seen, everything starring Lon Chaney Jr. and then of course Tom who's the cowboy
Tom Twat,
actor.
I think you said, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So all of those movies, what does Karas the Mummy do? He shuffles and strangles. And these guys figured out a way, using the Arthur Conan Doyle story, they figured out a way, well, what would be really scary is if you brought back a mummy, the thing the mummy did to the living was embalming techniques. And that in of itself becomes, it's like a Jigsaw level clever kills movie because of that fact. You have taking something from history, which is how they prepared the Egyptian bodies when they mummified them. And that's what the mummy's doing. And you're like, holy shit, this is a mummy I wouldn't want to be caught by. And then it even is able to pay homage to the fact that they're kind of lame when you know that they're coming for you, because of the way that Christian Slater dispatches them in the short. In the segment, mummies are still, they're slow, they're lame, they're dusty, and you can kill one with an electric carving knife from Thanksgiving. But then there's the other twist, which is, well, then what's keeping anybody from being brought back as a mummy who's been prepared as a mummy? I love that. I love taking something that feels familiar and predictable and innovating upon it. And that, to me, makes that segment stand out.
I would like to rebut one point, Your Honor, if I may.
Yeah, please.
The mummy itself is okay, but like what's surrounding that is the structure of like Steve Buscemi is like mad at these people because they like stole his dissertation or something like that. And this guy has literally learned how to do dark magic and doesn't even think like, hey, this might be my path to success. This is something that's interesting and that I can do. No, what he's really mad about is this dissertation. And that fact, just like, I can't get over that when I'm watching Lot 249 throughout the whole thing.
I have an objection.
A counter objection, please.
Okay,
go for it.
This is a guy, and we're watching the origin of him using black magic. There's a very sort of Herbert West quality to all of it, which is a guy who has great knowledge before him, and he's a nerd, but he's also an arrogant nerd. and this is his first time interacting with this power. So I think they imply when he reads that scroll, because he found it in the mummy, this is the first time he's done it.
Another objection: did she swallow it, or did he swallow it? Like, how did that scroll get inside of him?
Mhm.
The same way the fucking onions did. Jesus, they stuffed it in. Come on.
Right.
Your brain.
So
wait,
there-
I'm sorry.
that's
Can
where
you get that with the hook?
that's where my objection is. I don't see this mummy as possessing any strength whatsoever, which is demonstrated, as you even said, by how easily he's dispatched by Kristen Slater later. He's nothing more than a shambling, desiccated corpse. I mean, yes, he knows how to embalm, but he doesn't have any muscle structure. He's not going to hold anyone down and force things down their throat.
Just like the zombies in all the Romero movies.
Exactly. I was going to say, it's ultimately exactly as dangerous as a single zombie, which we would never consider to be a threat unless their numbers became overwhelming. And it's less dangerous than a single zombie because, again, its muscles have atrophied to the point of uselessness.
And I would maintain that the ending becomes the twist on that, which is that, oh, look, two zombies, two mummies. We could have endless mummies, zombies. I'm decided to coin the phrase
zombies. Well, I mean, it's a good thing.
Well, if they bite you, that you wouldn't turn into one of them. So I don't think they're zombies.
It's a good thing for Buscemi that Slater was stupid enough to keep
as
him
long
alive.
as Steve Buscemi lives, there will be zombies on this earth. All part of a balanced breakfast. Zombies, some sliced banana, and it's all part of a balance.
Well, what I'd like to say though is I talked about the original story of this one too. Is a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle short story called Lot Number 249. And it's more of a mystery. This is the author of Sherlock Holmes, right? And bad things happen to Bellingham's enemies, which are carried out by a ghastly but never well-seen figure. And Bellingham happens to have a mummy, which the narrator, Smith, sees sometimes disappear, but he never actually sees it walking around. Eventually, he thinks it's pursuing him, but he never actually sees it. He sees a figure chasing him, and he sees some dark eyes. The story doesn't establish with certainty whether it's actually a reanimated mummy, or maybe it's Bellingham himself using the story to scare people away, possibly from certain real estate opportunities. But the mystery,
very Sleepy Hollow.
The fact that the question is it's never answered with certainty makes the original story more unsettling. But here they don't leave it up to your imagination. They show you the mummy, and yeah, it does look good, but it removes any element of mystique that the mummy had in the original story.
All right, Mr. Bennett, I'll let you put a button on your case before we move over to the next segment. Not your closing per se, but if you want to address anything that Ben or Maynard just brought up.
Yeah, sure. I think that the original story was written at a time where we had not accepted that the mummy was a classic movie monster. So what I see is, I mentioned Herbert West before, in a Reanimator style way, how do we update this classic movie monster? If Reanimator is doing that for Frankenstein, then this is doing that for the mummy. So I see it as taking that thing we're already familiar with. As soon as we see a zummy, I keep saying zummy. As soon as we a gummy, as soon as we see a gummy mummy zummy zombie, as soon as we see a mummy in a movie, we know it's coming back to life. That's just something we've accepted by this point. By 1990,
Chekhov's mummy.
Chekhov's mummy. Yes, and rather than the Schrodinger's mummy that Arthur Conan Doyle was dealing with. If we do not reveal the mummy, does the mummy exist? Anyway, so the fact is,
which I like about the story.
I would like that too in terms of a short story, but I look at this as being, we think that we know where it's going, and the direction it goes is just how do we innovate once it goes in this direction we're expecting. And that's the stuff that I really like. I like that it plays with our expectations. I'll also submit that it's the best cast. It's Christian Slater. It's Julianne Moore before anybody really knew who Julianne Moore was. I'd seen her in Cast a Deadly Spell, and that's it. Yeah, I know, right? And she's got this great kind of old-time movie star quality. And Kira Sedgwick's little brother plays the terrible preppy guy, and he's terrific. And then centered at the center we got Christian Slater and prime Christian Slaterness coming in there. And there's something kind of wonderful about him being kind of our everyman at the center, where he straddles both worlds of being both sort of the rich kid who should be the bully, and then also he's kind of cool with the bullied guy. It's actually a nice Reanimator recasting. Steve Buscemi as Herbert West and Christian Slater as Dan. But anyway, all that centers around this great Steve Buscemi performance, who even early on, I just realized it's Mr. Pink and Clarence Worley. Like within 2 years of this movie, they're both going to play Tarantino characters. Steve Buscemi even then had this wonderful quality of you could sympathize with him, and he had a certain amount of vulnerability, and he was playing a absolute weasel. It's that same quality he brings to Mr. Pink, where you kind of root for him, and you see the guy, as being a bit of a vulnerable. He's not the strong man. He's not the winner. He's a bit of an underdog, and he's such a shit that it makes him more interesting if he was virtuous. Anyway, I would submit best cast, best characters.
All right, very good. We're going to move on to Mr. Haslar. You may present your case for The Cat from Hell.
My client, Your Honor, doesn't need to rely on undue star power like Lot 249 does, nor is it stolen from Japanese literature like Lover's Vow. It has Uncle Lewis from Christmas Vacation, and Stephen King wrote it, and that's all it needs. It seamlessly blends the perspectives of the cat and the people, as well as past and present, through simple yet effective direction. The direction in either other short, I would say, doesn't even come close to it. It sets up brilliantly where you're questioning if the cat is truly evil, or if Uncle Lewis is just overly paranoid for some reason. And it spends the right amount of time having fun with that idea, because the thing that the cat's doing, it's plausible, right? This cat could suffocate you. This cat could trip on you. So maybe he's just crazy. And once we establish that the cat
live in your stomach overnight.
No. At the beginning of the film, there's a progression there. So at the beginning, it's plausible, and he's explaining to the hitman why he needs it. And the hitman's like, "It's a cat. Like, what do you want me to kill a cat? This is insane." So it starts off with that right amount of levity. So once we establish that the cat is evil, it does a great job of taking something ordinary and making it terrifying, as opposed to the other two stories, which take things that you would never, ever encounter in real life. Mummies or gargoyles, especially fake ones with like puppety looking effects, not scary. They're
wait, is this the guy with the stuffed cat talking about fake and puppety looking? You want to speak up? I can hear you.
Also, the hell, I haven't encountered a mummy in real life. I saw one. I was inches away from a mummy in real life.
Well, I meant like a shuffling one. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, you don't know my mummy.
You got to locked up in the basement.
Shopping at Aldi enough.
Oh, geez, take that. All right, please continue, Mr. Haslar.
And then from there, we move into this perfectly silly yet morbid sequence of the hitman trying to take out this cat and failing. And he has just this great dialogue throughout it, just cursing himself for not being able to do it. Like, where else do you see this? This is original.
Home Alone 3, other two stories, Home Alone 4.
They take out cats in that one?
Mouse
also, let's face it, he's not trying to take out a cat. He's trying to take out a GoPro. It's just constantly he's being attacked by a fisheye lens.
And still losing, still funny. And the cinematography is superior throughout. There's striking shots of like a door suddenly to askew on the left side, and it just lingers on these. But it's framed in a way where you're like, hey, that is an interesting shot. I don't get that feeling from the others. I'll let the jury decide if they do. And then finally, that cat crawling into that throat. That triggered my gag reflex. I have a terrible gag reflex. I found myself just retching involuntarily throughout this scene. And none of the other two shorts did that to me. So this triggers a very visceral reaction from you, as opposed to the others, which are barely scary.
I love that in order to fit in his mouth, he has to suddenly transform into one of the bad taste aliens with this gigantic. You know what?
Evil imbues you with superpowers.
You made a point that I really, really like. I love the in-camera transitions to the past. It reminded me of the John Sayles movie Lone Star that does that, where you'd have the camera would pan down to a table in a restaurant and pan up, and it's in the 1950s. And it's really cool that they did that with lighting, like you said, where you would have the light come on the background and camera would move past Bill Hickey, and then there would be the past.
Even better, it's done on a dime. It's very cheap, yet very effective, so it makes good use of its time.
Did you think they were going to kiss, that one shot where they lean in from one side and then the other side and their noses are touching?
I always think that in any film.
I tried.
Kiss, come on, kiss.
All right, let's get back on topic, please. Mr. Haslar, if you'd like to Anything you'd like to expand upon? All right, Mr. Mayor, was there a point you would like to bring up in rebuttal?
I do. If this cat is supposedly built up to this manifestation of vengeance for all murdered cats, right? Why kill the hitman at all? Right? He could have killed the old man anytime he wanted. William Hickey is pretty much defenseless. The cat could have killed him.
Kill him too. He's brought in on it.
But that's exactly my question. Why? Right? We never see that the hitman specifically abuses cats. And as we know, this is a cat-related spirit vendetta cat. You know,
you're saying like aiming a laser pointer at a cat's head and trying to pull the trigger.
Why did it wait for the
vendetta?
Why does it even wait for the hitman to get there? He could have killed the old man earlier.
Maybe because it's a vengeful spirit. It knows. It's playing 4D chess. It knows what kind of person this guy is. I'm just going to wait for him to make the mistake.
I just think they thought they were gonna have a cute little like kind of mouse hunt sort of story, obviously before it, but like we're gonna chase this cat around and do a lot of slapstick. Why also and if the old man Drogon can leave so easily for the evening, like I'm gonna go into the town and the cat doesn't follow him, just fucking move. You're rich. Move to another house. You know, the cat is clearly not coming after you.
He's old. He forgets where he is.
I tried.
At least try. They haven't even tried.
This is my third house.
Aunt Bethany doesn't want to leave the house. She loves it. She knows where it is.
All right, Mr. Haslar, I'll let you respond to that and put a button on the case before we kick it over to Maynard.
Oh, I was talking throughout their arguments. No, I'm done, Your Honor. I think I made the points in.
I made a commotion during that because I just realized, why didn't they do a gag with the laser pointer with him with the laser sight?
Oh my gosh,
pointing around and having the cat chase it.
That didn't occur to me either. That would have been so funny. I really thought
that's where they were going with that.
I'd also like to talk about like the uncertainty of that story. You know, when the cat killings are initially described, they're made in a way that you could believe that this was a coincidence and the old man's paranoid and crazy. Like old ladies trip over their cats on the stairs. That's common. Yeah, and the second lady has asthma or a breathing disorder. And if she's sleeping with the cat in the room, that aggravated the condition. And of course, the butler could have just gotten into a fatal accident for any number of reasons. The uncertainties of their deaths leaves the possibility open that William Hickey could simply be going mad from guilt for the part he played in the death of so many innocent animals. But instead, the segment makes the mistake of objectively establishing that the cat is definitely both murderous and magical. And that
let me ask you, Mr. Maynard, because I agree that was a great setup, and that was my first argument, and I think it was very entertaining. But if you make it so that you maintain that throughout the story, how would it end?
I mean, there's been other stories like that where it's more their paranoid delusions, and you know, I think Poe has some, or maybe Lovecraft, and you know,
I think he would just like anger.
He gets paranoid and
like,
gets scared at a regular cat, and it makes him fall down the stairs or something, you know. But
it should have ended with him putting the cat in a crate and driving it out to like a quarry or something, and dropping the crate in the water, and then playing chess with his buddy.
Came back.
Yeah, exactly. And saying like, oh, well, thank God cats can't breathe underwater. And then we see the crate burst open and the cat comes out. Now that's
no, we don't see that. We just see a sopping wet paw prints go across like the marble floor.
All right. So that's the cat from hell, ladies and gentlemen.
The cat's paw should have burst out.
The cat from hell.
Let's kick it over to you, Mr. Maynard Bangs, for Lover's Vow.
So first, I'd like to touch on that. All three stories included in this anthology are adaptations. Lot 249 is a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle short story. Cat from Hell is a Stephen King short story. But my segment, Lover's Vow, is an adaptation of a Japanese folk tale about the Yuki
Objection, Your Honor.
The Snow Woman.
The movie acknowledges that it was based on a Stephen King story. It acknowledges that it was based on an Arthur Conan Doyle story. It does not acknowledge it was based on Yuki Onna, a Japanese folk story.
Tell me the author of that story.
Traditional.
Yeah, traditional. Traditional. But it was. I can look it up. There was someone who adapted it for like a Penguins Classic, a Japanese ghost stories, and I think he's typically credited.
That's
for
a translator. We don't credit translators as authors, all right?
Still, it's a traditional.
If you translate Beowulf into Greek and then I make a movie with Greek Beowulf, I'm not gonna credit you. You didn't write Beowulf. All right.
It would make it. Now it needs to give credit for it. Otherwise, it's theft.
All right. I appreciate the point, Mr. Haslar. We can let the jury decide how much they want to weigh the crediting issue.
Now, obviously, it was meant for Western audiences without any understanding of Japanese yokai. The Yuki-onna is substituted for a creature seen more commonly in American cities, a gargoyle, heavily associated with Gothic architecture. Of course, technically, since the gargoyle statue we see is featured as purely decorative and doesn't convey water or serve a specific architectural purpose, it's technically a grotesque, not a gargoyle. However, let's cut the semantics and agree to call it a gargoyle, shall we? But
Sure.
other than this change, the segment is pretty loyal to the source material. A man is confronted by a dangerous entity who agrees to spare his life only if he promises to keep the whole situation a secret. He later meets a beautiful woman, they fall in love, start a family, and so dutifully dedicated is he to his wife, he reveals the details of that dreaded night, only for her to reveal she was the entity all along, and she kills him. I think what makes this story so effective and timeless is the power of that twist ending. It recontextualizes all the events of the story through this new lens. When I first saw the twist, it was in 1964's Quaidon. What stuck with me was, whoa, he's been living with a monster, like a fucking monster, unbeknownst to him for years, and his kids are fucking monsters? Like, what the fuck? But on this viewing, the thing which really struck me was how it recontextualizes the monster into a relatable character, which makes her a standout among the other characters in this film. The characters in Lot 249 are all sort of repugnant. They cheat in competitions. They undermine their peers. They reanimate Egyptian deities that carry out petty grudges. There isn't really a hero in any sense, and you don't mind if they all suffer. And the same can be said with Cat from Hell. Everyone is nasty, including the cat, who, as we discussed, has no rules for who or why it kills and is therefore not even slightly righteous. Now, most of this segment, we follow Preston, a down-on-his-luck artist with a new girlfriend, a new lease on life. But it isn't until the twist reveal the audience realizes how much they actually relate to the gargoyle, who takes on the name Corolla here as a human. At first, I thought this was because it kind of sounds like gargola, gargoyle in Spanish. But looking into it, and I don't have a quote from the writer saying this was intentional or anything, so maybe I'm reading too much into it as usual. But as a woman's name, Corolla means free man in Old German. And I think that perfectly sums up the arc of Corolla, a being that was seemingly imprisoned as a statue, only able to watch Preston through his skylight. Maybe she's been fascinating or fantasizing about what a life with him could be like. And somehow, some way, she gets the chance. Through whatever cosmic magic controls this kind of shit, she gets her opportunity. She's a free man now, free to live the life she always wanted. You know, the morning after, she says, last night was very important to me. She doesn't just mean sex. She's talking about having her wildest dreams come true. And it's because Preston agrees to keep the secret. But in the end, it's all taken away from her. It's tragic. The same cosmic force that gave her the opportunity takes it away just as easily. And I think we can relate to that. And it was through no fault of her own, I might add. It's Preston who spills the secret. So the individual punished isn't really the one doing the crime. And I think paradoxically, you know, it's the out of loyalty, out of love for his wife, out of desire to be totally open and transparent with her about everything, which should be a good thing, that causes him to let slip the secret that fucks it all up, which is a bad thing. It's a fuck of a bummer. And whether you first experience this twist here or 1964's Quaidon, or you read the 1904 translation, or you heard it from a farmer in Japan like that author did, the twist just fucks you up. The more you think about it, it sticks with you, and that makes this easily the best segment of the three.
The more I think about it, the more I realize the entire story hinges on an off-screen wizard.
I mean, but that's the mystery of what the bargain is. Like, what forges it? Is it a conversation? But you understand the rules of it based on the ramifications of breaking the vow.
It took me the entire segment to realizing that they weren't just saying Caroline with New York accents. Carola. I thought they were just saying
Sweet
Caroline.
Carola.
And I'll touch on the effects work too.
Well, can I respond to the story?
Go for it.
So in the original story, he meets future wife later. In this, he literally starts boinking her the same night he witnesses a hellish ghoul from beyond. It doesn't like span out anything to build up that dread at all like the original does. So in that way, it's worse than the thing that is ripping it off. And I'd stop and consider my place if I were this guy, if I just witnessed a gargoyle like rip someone open and try and make sense of it all. Not this dude.
Mr. Haslar, I don't expect you to understand fear sex, but I think the jury will.
Exactly. Last time I saw someone get horribly mutilated, I totally wanted, hey, what's your name? Let's go home together.
Yeah, if you want to get laid, go to a funeral, Ben. There, you're gonna get laid. I keep telling you.
And then at the end, he wants to move to the country, and he thinks that like telling her about this gargoyle he saw 10 years ago will show his dedication to her, not the 10 years of marriage and the child that they have. You know, I don't understand like his motivation in this case, why this thing is like, this will get her to move to the country for me.
This is almost certainly something that's been bothering and haunting him, and I think she deserves some kind of explanation. I don't think it's unreasonable. That's what's so fucked up about it. He's not doing anything wrong really either. He's coming clean.
Maybe they made a cut where right in the middle, he's like, we gotta get out of the city. Oh, I saw someone.
One last point.
Saw an old lady got pushed down the stairs, and also I saw a demon eat my friend. You know, like,
yeah, not a demon, it's a gargoyle. I want to touch on some other on the effects too, because they've been made out to be a strength of the other segments. And this is not an FX driven story, but the gargoyle puppet looks cool. Its facial features are softened enough that you believe the intelligence in its eyes when it speaks, but it still has a monstrous feral nature to it as well. I especially want to highlight the transformation scene at the end when the gargoyle limbs start bursting through Corolla's skin and her face and breasts start to malform and then those wings explode out of her back. It's a great sequence of practical effect work, and it adds to the impact of the twist. And as you mentioned, it was mentioned earlier, Ray Don Chong and James Remar, come on.
Great chemistry.
All right.
I would just like to say that I don't believe a single word the gargoyle says, because that voice and that puppet do not match.
I like the design of the gargoyle. The execution is a little muppety, and I think it might be a case. They even say on the commentary their reach might have exceeded their grasp on that gargoyle puppet.
All right. All cases have been presented. The respective lawyers will now present their closing arguments. We will start again with Jack Bennett for Lot 249.
I put it to the jury to think of a better mummy movie than Lot 249. And sure, you could say that Brendan Fraser one. It's fun, but that's
that Brendan Fraser one.
It's that's an Indiana Jones movie more than a mummy movie. That the mummy in that movie is a wizard. You know, he's a sorcerer. He does all this stuff. He's barely a mummy. And even the Boris Karloff version, he's a wrapped mummy for the first scene only. For the whole rest of the movie, he's Dracula. He's literally the Bela Lugosi Dracula, just in ancient Egyptian garb. The fact is that the mummy, there have been great mummies. The Mummy Monster Squad, that's a great design on the mummy, but he's also the first one dispatched and the least threatening of all the monsters. I like The Awakening. There's a movie called Dawn of the Mummy that's kind of a crappy movie, but it actually does something cool where when the mummy grabs people, the embalming fluid burns them. So it's kind of a scary twist on a mummy. I bring up this hemming and hawing about mummy movies because I seriously am hard pressed to come up with a more effective mummy movie, straight up mummy movie in the way we think of a werewolf movie or a vampire movie than Lot 249. I think it's the great horror mummy monster movie. And so I put it to you, the achievement of just that, even beyond the effectiveness of the cinematography and the acting, which I think is top notch for this movie. Come on, that's an achievement. It's a mummy. It's a scary mummy. It's a mummy that pulls your brains out with a hook. What's not to love? I rest my case.
All right, thank you.
Brain hook.
Mr. Haslar, representing the Cat from Hell, please present your closing argument.
In the Darkside Tales, there's one story shown about a hellish cat. It's terrorfully shown. Lot 249 and Lover's Vow, they're both only okay. But the cat from hell is the one that we all replay. Cause the cat stole the show the very same day. Yes, the cat stole the show. The others are a yawner, but the cat stole the show. It's the one that we replay, 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 replay. The choice is clear, jury members. And if you couldn't hear the truth in my testimony today, you couldn't hear a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin plant. And if you choose not to do anything constructive in that jury room, vote by voting for the cat from hell. Why don't you run to the living room and get my stogie? Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bangs, representing Lover's Vow, please present your closing argument.
Your Honor, I think we could probably just cut to the deliberation. I'm not worried about what that jury is going to say in there at all. You know why? Because earlier, I was talking to my best friend in the whole wide entire world, Schlenzo D. And he gave me his word. He was going to vote for me in there. So we may as well go and get this whole silly deliberation thing out of the way so we can get to declaring me the victor all the sooner. Because honestly, just between me and you, Judgy Boo, I was also talking to one Mr. D-Rok Scumbucket before, too. And he also made a promise to vote for my segment. So again, there's really nothing to worry about here. This is all just a formality. But, you know, just in case, I went ahead and I touched base with Ryan Luis Rodriguez prior to the proceedings here today. And he swore to me. He pledged an oath, forged a pact, a covenant with me sealed with a kiss, that he would go into that deliberation room and cast a vote in my favor. So go ahead, Mr. Judge, Your Honor, send them in that room, because I think we all know where this is going. It's extremely transparent. You can see it coming a mile away. So let's just all go ahead and get it over with. I thank you.
You promised you wouldn't tell. All right. Thank you all. Members of the jury, Mr. D-Rok Schlender, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. Nobody Hits Me Twice, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the spooky facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine which segment is superior and thus condemn the other two segments to the depths of movie hell. The scare taker will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
That'll make a really short movie, Your Honor.
Oh, yes.
Right this way to the deliberation room.
What was the first thing you said?
Expertly done, thank you.
Hey,
That was the flattest delivery, Dylan.
That's what it
Bits are the
was.
best bits.
Yeah, that's the correct reading. He did the right reading. That's the
Thank
way that
you.
joke is told.
All right, I think we'll start off with Dylan, and we'll find out if Maynard's testimony really did move him to a bigger house.
Well, okay, so I thought we had three very fine cases, because honestly, I kind of like them all. I really enjoyed this movie. I like the wraparound story with Deborah Harry and the Paperboy. I just thought
Wraparound story is facts, not in evidence. Dylan, please keep it to the arguments of the case.
Okay, I'm just saying everything about this worked. I gotta say, Jack definitely made me like Lot 249 more. When I was watching it, I was like, I don't know. And when he's like, well, if you think about this, is actually a really good mummy story. I'm like, oh, that's true. And there is a paucity of good mummy stories out there. And then, of course, it is a stacked cast and it has great practical effects. Cat from Hell, Ben was hitting on a lot of things that I enjoyed as well. I like the flashbacks. I like seeing things from the cat's perspective, and it was just this wholly unique story. You've never really seen something quite like that. And the other two are kind of relying on like the creature effects to really sell it. And this one, you had a bit more of the paranoia of like, is the cat really evil? And then the cat jumps down his throat and there's no doubt left. And then I thought Maynard had a good point with Lover's Vow about it being very well realized. The only thing is I just can't get behind this idea that we're supposed to be sympathetic for the gargoyle because she kills the friend in the alley for no reason. Just shows up, kills him, falls in love with James Remmer. James Remmer is one of my favorite actors. I thought he did such a great job in this, and the transformation at the end is pretty cool, but I had to agree with when the other guys were objecting. It's like you're basically just waiting for that payoff of him telling someone about the gargoyle. Like that's the only thing you're thinking about the whole time you're watching it. So I do think it was three strong cases, but I definitely am leaning one way over the others, I'd have to say. But I'd love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. Some points worth going back and discussing once we have discussed our own points of views. Ryan, your thoughts on the case as presented?
Well, I didn't care for this motion picture. I was quite bored throughout. I did not like any of the segments. I thought it was weird that the Cat from Hell was not more interesting, considering that it's about a New York doll trying to assassinate a cat. I would have figured that would have been really right up my alley. That sounds like a peak Ryan material there. So I just have to look at the cases provided. And I think everybody did a great job in selling their side. But I don't know who I believe the most. I really liked Jack's argument, considering that I think that was the segment that I liked the least. But once he was done talking it up, I was kind of like leaning in that direction. So you look at like Lover's Vow, and I guess I like the gargoyle. I don't know. I have no fucking clue. I did not care for this movie. But I'm leaning at the moment toward, even though it was probably my least favorite segment, Lot 249. But I want to hear, Derek, what do you think?
Ryan, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I did not really enjoy this movie at all. It felt too like, I know that it was done after Creepshow, but nobody brought that up, so we should probably strike that from the record. But I was kind of hoping for more of that Creepshow vibe. Especially how it starts very cheesy and kind of, there's a kid in a cage. She opens up the big pantry, kid in a cage. I'm like, all right. The moment this movie actually started, though, I was like, oh my God, I've seen this, but I could not remember any of it. So based off the fact that I found myself fiercely bored throughout this whole thing, I'm also going to go into the facts as provided. I do think a lot was, there was a lot of attention paid to like special effects and what worked and what didn't. I don't think really any of the special effects did it for me. In terms of like storytelling, I will say, I think probably Lot 249, Jack made the best case for like characters and narratives and motivations. I do enjoy the cinematography in The Cat from Hell. Lover's Vow, Maynard made some really good points, especially like vis-a-vis the special effects and, the character work in that. But honestly, it suffers from the time jump, which is something the guys had mentioned, is that once you jump forward, you're like, well, what have you been doing for 10 years? Like, this isn't the time guilt eats you up. The ending fell apart for me. Cat from Hell, the puppetry, it's literally just like, who is it? Leslie Nielsen, when you throw a pillow at him, just holding it to his face. So it just kept it breaks the immersion. The end effect of it breaking out of the mouth is really cool, though, for just kind of like grotesque puppetry. But the one that really recontextualized,
it's the name of my punk band, actually, New York Dolls cover band.
Yeah, I would say Jack did the best job at, if I had to go back and watch one of these again, I am leaning towards going back and watching it with kind of the enthusiasm that Jack brought to Lot 249. So I'm leaning towards Lot 249.
Wow. Well, you're the foreman, so I'll lock it in first. I do think we had three very strong cases, and I do think Jack did a great job with Lot 249. But Big Ben brought it for Cat from Hell. I just think that was a very interesting story, and he was able to articulate why. And it really had like that Tales from the Crypt feel, and it could be because the old guy was in the episode of Tales from the Crypt that Arnold Schwarzenegger directed, which is really cool. But that's a good
episode. That's a really good episode.
It is.
Hold on, with Tales from the Crypt, the ending of Lot 249 is very similar to a Tales from the Crypt one, where a man is having an affair with a voodoo priestess. So she kills him so she can bring him back so they can romance together forever. But he was an organ donor. So the end of the episode is him coming through the door with all of his organs missing. So
That's pretty great.
if we're going for like a Tales from the Crypt thing, again, Lot 249 has a little bit more of that.
Okay, but
Tales
see,
from
I
the
didn't
Crypt.
see that episode, and I'm not saying it's because it reminds me of Tales from the Crypt. I'm just saying that's another point in its favor. But what I'm really going with is that was the direction I was leaning. Ben basically said the things that confirmed my priors. I really thought Lot 249 was the weakest, but Jack's case moved that up to second place for me. So that's the most I can give it. I'm still locking in with Cat from Hell.
All right. Ryan?
Well, I think we're simpatico, Derek. So I'm going to lock in Lot 249.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like I said, Jack, his defense of it is I kind of almost want to go back and watch it with that same level of enthusiasm that he brought to the case. Plus, I think he did a really good job of saying the virtues of it and not coming down so hard on like some of the flaws that the other ones had. He did a really good job hyping up the virtues of what is in reality just a very silly, very campy mummy kills your enemies. So I'm going to go Lot 249. I'm going to lock it in.
Derek, let's rewatch it together. Come on over.
As soon as that check clears, you got it, Jack.
I got popcorn and pumpkin beer.
Oh, sweet. I actually have pumpkin
He'll
beer
never
too.
leave.
Yeah.
All right. Derek, you have to say we gotta go tell that very handsome judge.
We have to go tell that very handsome, but not as handsome as his dashing older brother, Judge.
Damn it.
Accurate.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Tales from the Darkside, the movie, we find in favor of Lot 249.
Oh, wow. Settle down. I don't know if we're hearing anything interesting. I won't go into detail.
No.
The verdict is so rendered.
Nothing interesting.
Not a single
Nothing interesting in
turns
this
out.
courtroom at all.
Nope. Not a single ninja store or anything. The verdict is so rendered. Lot 249 is the superior segment. Mr. Bangs and Mr. Haslar are to be mummified at once and serve at the beck and call of Mr. Bennett.
What was that?
Well, hold on, let me finish. The other two segments, of course, are to be cast into movie hell.
Seems sort of unfair.
The worst part about it is he's going to make us drink pumpkin beer, isn't he?
This is Mumbly Mumberston, still dead, just hanging out. Reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice, I guess. I don't really care anymore. Jack Bennett, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
I feel like that was one of the least enthusiastic verdicts that I've encountered. Hey, this movie was terrible, but he made a good enough case. And I love that that happened after I started by this whole thing by saying how much I love
Welcome to my
the
world,
movie.
Jack. Welcome to my world, friend.
As spooky season movies go, I do put Tales from the Darkside up there. I put it up there with Creepshow and Trick or Treat, you know, the great anthologies, just because I do. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a little guy in a wheelchair who's I'm sorry. Do you have something to say, sir?
I was Oscar nominated for Prizzi's Honor, and all this guy does is quote that fucking Chevy Chase movie I did. And I'm saying, guys, it's legendary.
What are you most well known for, sir? If I look you up on IMDb, what comes up? What movie comes up?
You wouldn't know IMDb if you drove a garbage truck through a night of it.
Hey, you were also in
I'm
that
a
episode of Wings, and that was a
legendary
great
acting
episode.
teacher. I was in my
We're taking this two-man show on the road.
That guy rolled away. You know what's crazy about that is I'm pretty sure William Hickey died in 2009. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So thank you so much for that very soft verdict. I feel validated. I feel validated that I could be the best of the worst in terms of this anthology.
I like this movie. Oh,
well, good. I'm glad. You know,
Can we get back to Ryan's interview, please?
you mean Mumbly's
Mumbly's
interview?
so polite.
Ryan's in the
So
studio
polite.
waiting for us.
oh right, yeah. Anyway, I'm very happy with the verdict, and I intend to drink this pumpkin beer by myself.
Thank you. That went on for a real goddamn long time. And here comes Ben Haslar. Excuse me, can we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
Is that the rain looping back again? Wow, neat.
A very
I
long
actually like
loop.
this movie. I like this movie. So Jack, I will say that your closing argument, it did make me think about this in a different way. This, as far as a mummy movie where he's a mummy the whole time, I wasn't thinking of it in that light. This movie is the one that I would put up above that on that category. So if you are having a watch party, I will skip the pumpkin beer and I will join you and Derek.
Whatever. Maynard Bangs, what you thinking?
Mumbly, they promised they'd vote for me, but they all broke their vows. I mean, I'm forced to transform back into my true form.
She will fuck up your bus if you fuck with her cubs. Cocaine.
Oh, it's cocaine.
No.
Yeah, I'll do the whole song if you want. So that wasn't obvious. Oh, I'll do the whole song then. Okay, all right.
That's all right.
Will
That's all
crash
right.
you with claws
Mumbly,
if
Mumbly,
you
take us out,
touch
Mumbly.
your a ball. Cocaine bear.
Shove him, Mumbly, shove him.
Cocaine Bear, the movie only slightly less fun to being attacked by a bear while on cocaine.
Not guilty.
Really?
That's all
Not
I
guilty?
have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. So glad I'm dead.
No, you'll
Let's
be
all
back,
go back to
Mumbly.
the
We're going to
studio, guys.
reanimate you. But yeah, this is considered. I mean, we didn't mention, but they officially kind of consider it like Creepshow 3 because it is
Yeah,
it's
I
Stephen
read
King and
that.
Romero.
Well,
Cat from Hell was supposed to be in 2.
in Creepshow 2. Yeah.
Right,
And
but it
John
wasn't good enough.
Harrison- John Harrison.
No, they didn't
weirdly
have enough money to finish it.
Well, yeah. If you've seen Creepshow too, they didn't have enough money to finish any of those.
They didn't have enough money to launch the
Raft
show.
rules.
Kills.
I will stand by the raft until my dying day.
It's a
Well-
better short story, though.
And you know what's something funny? I didn't say this, and I wondered later if it was a mistake. But there actually was. The movies were in a different order. The segments were in a different order. Cat from Hell was originally intended to come last, and it was going to be the thing that when Debbie Harry comes out of it, she says, "You really saved the best for last, didn't you?" Because they had so much confidence in the combination of a Stephen King story adapted by George Romero,
Right.
and then there was a test screening in which when she said, "You really saved the best for last, didn't you?" it got jeers from the
Ooh.
audience who had laughed at the fucking cat puppet and all of that stuff. And they're like, "Ooh,
I
we
like the
better-"
cat puppet. I thought that all worked.
I agreed with Ben's earlier point that the cinematography is more interesting than the cat puppet.
But I will break the argument here. I do like this one, and Ben, if you like it too, then that's 4-2 who liked
Yeah, I'll
it.
watch it again.
Yeah.
Ben, if Johnny Cochran doesn't start doing his closing arguments in song, or Alan Dershowitz or somebody, that technique, that is a ripe fruit waiting to be plucked, I must say.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
Isn't
John
Johnny
Har-
Cochran dead?
Yes,
Oh,
quite.
So he'd have to do
But-
it more like Lot
This is
249.
this is
So-
the Halloween episode, of course.
Alan
Yeah,
Dershowitz's career's dead.
It's a Halloween season.
His
sort of,
mouth is
yeah.
about the size of the gargoyles.
Exactly. So, Jack, what have you been up to lately? What's been keeping you busy?
Well, I back in January, I directed and produced with an actress named Fina Sanchez a short film called A Good Scream that she wrote and she stars in. And we made this short just to make some art, just to do something on our own. And it's been having a nice, healthy festival run. It just played at Screamfest here in Los Angeles. Got a great reception there. And I believe it's going to be hosted on the Screamfest YouTube channel or website. I don't know exactly where it's going to end up, but you guys will all be able to watch it online soon. It's just a short film that I did. Like I said, it's sort of an offbeat suspense thing. And I'm very proud of it. And Fine is very proud of it as well. She plays the lead performance and she's spectacular in it. So
You know whereabouts online?
yeah, it's going to be on the official Screamfest channel, and I'm pretty sure that's a YouTube channel, but it might just be on the website. I'm sorry, I don't have that information. As soon as I see it online, I'll be able to share the link and everything.
Well, we'll keep an eye out.
Thanks so much. And then
Yeah,
other
no.
than that, I've just been really enjoying the writer's strike being over and the SAG strike not being over.
Limbo.
Hey, pretty
Yeah.
soon we'll all get back to work soon.
Yeah, hopefully, and we're looking forward to that. Now, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. And since it's spooky season, we're asking for horror or spooky movies. So what is a movie that people should see?
Now, I am going to build off of this one, and I'm going to say that in addition to the other anthologies that we mentioned, I have a particular love, and my orange tabby just jumped into my lap as I'm saying this. So it's almost like he predicted that I'm going to recommend the movie Cat's Eye, which I believe you can find streaming on Max. And because it was all based on Stephen King stories, one original story, which is the third one with Drew Barrymore sort of taking the lead role. The movie Cat's Eye, first off, if you're a cat lover, if you're the kind of person who believes that your cat is secretly magical, and by the way, what you said before, cats are magic and they are murderers. I can say that as somebody who owns two of them. Yeah, this guy is just waiting for me to drop dead so he can eat my face. But that being said, the Cat's Eye has a heroic cat as its framing device. And the cat actually runs through the three stories, sort of the way that the $20 bill runs through the movie $20. You know, we kind of follow this cat on his adventures. And it's a PG-13 horror movie made at a time where that was a little more interesting than you would think hearing it today. It's kind of it's a De Laurentiis production shot in North Carolina. And it's kind of a perfect Stephen King voice movie. It's got his humor and his cynicism, and also a little bit of his romanticism, and his eyes. It's got his eyes. It's got a whole
and his nose.
It was directed by the guy. It was directed by Louis Teague, who directed Cujo and also directed Alligator, which is my favorite giant alligator movie. Might be the only giant alligator movie I can think of.
No, there's
Alligator 2, the mutation.
Yeah, there's Alligator 2, the mutation.
Is Lake Placid an alligator? Or
I think it might be a crocodile.
It's a crocodile.
But
what a croc.
What's the one that the guy did with Texas Chainsaw? Toby Hooper's did after Texas
Eaten
Chainsaw.
Alive.
Eaten Alive.
I think those are alligators.
Yeah,
they're not giant though. They're just regular alligators.
How dare you? You get into the water and tell them that.
It's a big one. Eaten Alive.
Big man on the shore.
The alligator in X is a regular sized alligator. That's a
regulation.
Alligator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing about Cat's Eye that I love so much is that when I was a kid, I saw it on HBO all the time during the day. Since it is PG-13, they would play it during the day. So I'm a little kid parked in front of the TV, having nightmares in real time about a little troll living in the walls of my bedroom. And the design on this troll, which was created by Carlo Rambaldi. It's so good. But also the other segments, one starring James Woods, who, whatever you think of James Woods, he's a spectacular screen actor. And the other one starring Robert Hayes from Airplane, and surprisingly suspenseful Robert Hayes from Airplane in this segment of Cat's Eye. Anyway, I can't recommend it enough if you're looking for a fun, spooky season, doesn't take itself too seriously, doesn't rely too much on gore and ridiculousness, kind of anthology horror movie.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Quitters Incorporated just always sticks with me. Like I just remember it so well. There's something about that one that just really sticks with you.
It's so dark. It's like a dark comedy.
It is.
Horrible dark punchline at the end.
Now I know what I'm watching tonight. Big Bun, what have you got?
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. The reason I brought it up is because of the cat stealing the breath. That's a plot point in both Tales from the Darkside movie and Cat's Eye. That cats steal your breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't think they do.
Big Ben. No, it turns out it's little trolls.
Oh no! What?
Spoilers.
I'm pretty sure
I thought D-Rok was going to go first.
You want D-Rok to go first? Why is D-Rok? He didn't do any work.
Yeah.
Fine. D-Rok, you could go. What's your recommendation?
I thought I was done and I could start drinking. No.
You haven't started already?
Yeah. Wow. Holy.
Hey, I was thinking
about
stopping
you from starting drinking.
No way I was going to stay awake. I guess my recommendation will be I'm going to recommend Cobweb. I don't know if anyone's recommended that yet.
Well, go for it.
It wouldn't matter if they did anyway.
You're a special guest. You can recommend whatever you like.
Please call me Special Ghost. Come on. It's got Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr. Special Ghost. What's a Tim Conway?
About 120 pounds.
Simpsons references aside, it's about like this 8-year-old kid, and he's talking to like someone on the inside of the wall. So they establish pretty quick that it's a person in the wall movie, but the whole thing plays out as like a very dark fantasy. It's like dark fairy tale, very stylized, hyper realized. The outside of the house and the inside of the house don't match on purpose, kind of thing. There's some really cool camera work. It's directed by, I don't know if I'm Samuel Bowden, I want to say is his name. He's a guy who did the Netflix horror show Marianne, if anyone ever saw that. So if you liked that kind of stylized horror, I recommend it. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I'm pretty sure it's mercifully short too. So I don't think it's very long.
I love that. Short ass movie.
Yeah, short movie, creepy movie. Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr playing like parents with a secret. It's just, I liked it. I liked it.
Excellent. I know what I'm watching tonight.
It was a blacklist.
It was a long night.
It was a blacklist script, and it just came out this summer. So that's wow, what a fresh recommendation. It was produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. It was one of their movies from their cottage industry.
Because they're all partnered up with Anthony Starr and everything now from The Boys anyway. So
yeah.
Oh, when we think of D-Rok, we think of Fresh. Big Bun, what have we got?
The last time we put on an anthology horror film, I recommended Ju-on the Grudge, which uses separate narratives to craft an overall horror. So today I will recommend the sequel, Ju-on the Grudge 2. Every time I watch the Ju-ons, I go back and forth as to whether or not I like this one more than the first Grudge or not. On the one hand, the scares are definitely better. And on the other hand, the plot threads are a tad crazier. Space gets bent, time gets bent, the laws of reincarnation get bent. And throughout all that, it loses a bit of its genuinity. But that means it's by no means bad. Like I said, I go back and forth whether I like this one more than the first, depending on the year. It does a lot of things really well, among which is experimenting, doing new things, while trying to stay true to the spirits of what we all know and love from the first movie. One thing I really like about this film is how the ghost of Kayako just sort of shows up, not always to kill, sometimes just standing there in the window or in the far corner, while her victims kind of pass beneath her. She's observing, just like any living creature would. I love little details like that. Rather than going straight for the jugular of the scary kill, it's far more effective. And if you still haven't seen the first one, grab a bottle of sake or shochu or a pumpkin beer, I guess, and turn down those lights and make it a spooky double feature.
Now, just to clarify for the audience, you are talking about the original Japanese Ju-on the Grudge.
Yes. Yes.
Not
I do like the American The Grudge, though.
Sure. And that series, the Sam Raimi produced series, the American series, that does kind of feel like it's its own thing that runs parallel to the original Japanese series.
It does. It's meant to.
Yeah.
The second one's the one that deals with time travel. Is that the one that also deals? Because back in the day, Dylan and I think watched them back to back, so I get a little blurry on it.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Just like the movie does.
So Schlenzo, I looked up if Debbie Harry and Steve Buscemi ever made another movie together, and you know what? Well, they didn't. So my recommendation is Totally Killer from 2023.
Hey, all right.
When a serial killer from her mother's past comes back to finish the job, a young girl must, wait for it, travel back in time to the 80s to prevent the initial killings and catch the person responsible. That's right, they're doing a Back to the Future with serial killers. The way the film gets its protagonist back to 1987 is utterly contrived, but if you're willing to go along with the movie on this, it rewards you with a great deal of fun. The film pokes fun at time travel, the slasher genre, and the 80s quirky brand of offbeat political incorrectness. Jamie gets to meet all the major people in her life almost 40 years earlier because literally none of them moved. And the results are pure wackiness. Kiernan Shipka is very funny as the woke fish out of water Jamie. I guess she's known for her role in Mad Men, which I didn't see, but she
Sabrina
looks
the Teenage Witch,
really familiar to me. Yeah, but I didn't see that either. So she looks so familiar, kept bugging me the whole time. And I think it's because she kind of looks like McKenna Grace. So I think you should watch and decide for yourself.
Looks a lot like Emma Watson.
Oh, I can see that too.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you put some sort of like graph up. We'll get a graphic.
Actors
I
love
was
it.
looking at them side to side. I was like, what? But now I want.
You could have just said you had the graphic up
You need
the
to
whole
superimpose them. Yeah.
Yeah.
and you see it on the podcast.
I've noticed that actors love nothing more than to have you say, you know who you look like, and then another actor.
I mean, I don't care what if I don't care what she doesn't like it. You switch it up, man. Change it. Go brunette. Like fuck off. Like I don't owe you anything.
Settle down, man. We're never gonna get
strong feelings
now.
Lorenzo D, what have you got for me?
Oh God, what do I have for you guys? It's not much. So I can only assume that Jack Peter Mundy was like high, talking to Shannon Holiday, saying, "Hey, man, Amityville is like a real place, so like anyone can make a movie about it, right? And houses with weird windows, like you can't like copyright that, right?" Shannon, of course, also probably blazing out of her mind, like, "Yeah, no, Jack, it's great. Let's make this movie." And so they tried to make their own Amityville movie, only they realized they weren't very talented, so they fell back on throwing a living scarecrow in it to kill everyone. And, instead of doing anything particularly original with the whole Amityville aesthetic, they literally just call it Amityville Scarecrow, released in 2021. Just so they could have the house on the cover.
Hey, well, you watched it.
Well, yeah, well, Tubi. I did because it was on Tubi. Which,
it's a Tubi movie.
But their marketing worked. I'm just saying they got the watch out of it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna watch every single Scarecrow. But if they shouldn't be aiming for me, you have to aim higher if you want to succeed in this business. And right now, it is sitting at a incredibly well-deserved, if not overrepresented, at 2.5 stars on IMDb.
Wow.
So I'm sorry. I promised everyone, all of our fan, that I was going to have better Scarecrow movies, and I just haven't been able to deliver this season.
They don't exist, really.
There's like 3, and I've already recommended them.
I think I think it's like, to Jack's point, you have to find a good Scarecrow anthology segment, like the Mummy one.
It is
because
so
it's just
funny.
not going to work in a long term.
It is so funny because I was thinking that, but I just didn't have the bandwidth today to search for it. And
we watched Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. We watched that with the kids.
That's a great Scarecrow.
I already had Amityville Scarecrow in the hopper, but I will do that.
Don't make excuses.
Screw that good movie. I want to watch this really bad one. It's already queued up.
Yeah.
For next week, I will find.
Just admit you like
an anthology. No, I don't.
I
will find
an
anthology with a Scarecrow movie in it.
So what drew you in was the Scarecrow aspect, not the Amityville aspect.
Absolutely,
correct?
Yes.
That is fascinating.
He's recommending all the Living Scarecrow movies.
Living Scarecrow movies are the bedrock foundation of the
but
horror
if you ask
genre.
him why, we'll be here.
It's not.
Have you seen Dark Harvest?
Yeah, why? It's okay. You're the second person to recommend that to. I probably should. The
That's
other one was
new one?
Bobby Lapierre, so I should probably check it out. He said it's on Amazon Prime. So
but Bobby likes Vaseline on toast. Ryan, send us on home.
My spooky recommendation this week is actually on topic for once, and alternately, that's the proper way of saying that. Very good horror anthology. This time from Italian auteur Mario Bava, 1963's Black Sabbath. It contains 3 segments, all with their own strengths, hosted by the most iconic name in classic horror cinema, Karloff the Uncanny. The first segment features a woman terrorized over the telephone, clearly the inspiration for Scream. The third is a gothic mood piece that I didn't fully understand, but it sure was pretty. The standout is the second longest segment starring Karloff that feels like a more elegant version of Roger Corman's Edgar Allan Poe cycle, all sumptuous textures and saturated colors. Bava is regarded as a master for a reason, and reportedly, this is his favorite film he ever made, and if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for you, god damn it. Black Sabbath is currently streaming on Shudder, Tubi, Pluto, and Canopy. Support your local library.
No reason not to watch it.
So I said on Blueski, local library, support you. It was a great joke. You didn't say anything, Ryan. Come on.
It did really stick in his craw, but that is a great recommendation. I know what I'm watching tonight.
Black Sabbath is that's the only time Boris Karloff played a vampire, was in the movie Black Sabbath. Yeah.
I've acquired Dark Harvest, and I will watch it and recommend it next week.
Oh,
Thank
you'll
you.
watch it, but you will not recommend it.
Yes, he will. He will.
So is the scarecrow really a living scarecrow, or is it a crazy guy dressed up as a scarecrow?
You'll have to find out next week. Because we are all out of show, but we want to thank our guest, Jack Bennett, for joining us. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Yep, we're going to have you back maybe for another anthology
And
sooner
D-Rok,
rather than
and
later.
D-Rok.
And would you just hold your horses? You want to run the segment, Ben? And
Well, you forgot him for the recommendation. I just
And
assumed.
we'd like to thank Mr. D-Rok Scumbucket for joining us, even though I consider him part of the family in a very real and legally binding sense. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I was already here, like I said, for a previous case. So if you'll excuse me, I'm doing court, but don't worry. I have a very good lawyer.
And if you like D-Rok's particular brand of D-Rockisms, you can, of course, see his YouTube channel, Schlender 5 Productions. And
Oh, yeah, I do that.
find
don't I?
Trailer Trashed on there, which you do with a very ruggedly handsome gentleman that I've seen.
That's you.
But you guys
And
do
also
drink
videos
too
with your much taller brother discussing video games. and
Yeah,
other
Casey
bric-a-brac.
doesn't come out that much, though. And we hope
Casey's not taller.
everyone else will join us again as well. As the Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels keeps burning.
Count it.
Cats are murderers.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.